Begin casting on for your 2 at a time socks by leaving a long tail long enough for all the stitches you'll need to cast on, whether for whatever size you're making. I'm making a medium, so I need to cast on 56 stitches, so I left enough tail for 56. But our first step is just to cast on half of those stitches. So I cast on 28 stitches, and go ahead and pause this video until you've got that done. Just half the stitches that you need, whether it's 24, 28, or 32 stitches, and then meet me back here. So the next step after we do this is to go ahead and push these down just a little bit and take the other ball of yarn here it is, leaving a long enough tail for all your stitches once again. And how much tail will you need? I think you need like maybe, let's say 3.5 feet of tail should be plenty. 4 if you're nervous, but that'll be plenty. So now we're going to go ahead and cast on all the stitches we need for the second sock. So I'm going to cast on 56 stitches. Alright, now we have something that looks like this. We've got half of our stitches on from one ball of yarn and all of the stitches that we need on the other ball of yarn. The next step is to slide all these stitches like this off the needle and onto the cable like that. And just looking at these stitches right now, we're going to go ahead and divide these in half, just like we do for magic loop. So go ahead and curl that, count to your halfway point. I've got 56 stitches on mine, so my halfway point is 28. Remember, counting by 5s is the fastest way to count. Review that video if you haven't. Alright, so taking out a loop right in the middle of those stitches, and go ahead and pull your cable so that we get into something that looks like ready position, only we're not quite done casting on yet. Alright, so what we want is something that looks like this. Our large amount of stitches divided in half like that, and our half stitches like this. And these are the tips of my needles right here. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and cast on the other half of the stitches, and this is how we do it. Push this half up like that so it's nice and spread out. And you'll notice this looks very strange, right? Because our working yarn and the tail are down here as opposed to up here like we're used to. But that's why we did this funny order, is so that they would be down here. Just like this sock joins down here, we need this sock to join down here as well. They need to be exactly the same. So, holding your needles together like this, sort of like a TV antenna, rabbit ears, we're going to go ahead and tension this yarn for the long tail cast on. Hold the empty needle closer to your left hand than the full needle, just like that. Okay? And we're going to be casting on the other half of our stitches, however many that is, whether it's 24, 28, or 32, right here onto this needle, and this is how we're going to do it. We're just going to pretend like there's already a slip knot on here, so go ahead and tighten that up like that so there's not a big gap, like that. So we're just going to hold these slightly apart. You don't need to put your finger in between them, that's going to be hard. So just holding them like this. Do your long tail cast on, and casting on just to the empty needle, letting that needle that's full of stitches just hang out next to it. Alright, I've got the other half of my stitches cast on now. So now I've got 56 stitches from this ball of yarn and 56 stitches from this ball of yarn. Go ahead and rotate your knitting, get back to ready position, and this is what it's going to look like. There we go. So, 2 sets of stitches. They're not joined yet, so they look sort of open like that on one end. 2 sets of stitches, 1 from each ball of yarn. So, just letting these be for a minute, let's look at this. The first thing we need to make sure is that there are no twists in the round. The way that we do that is just look at where the knots are and make sure that the knots are all facing each other on the inside like that. Like that, okay? So a twist would be really easy to spot. It would look like this, where the knots go all the way around. So look out for something like that. okay? Making sure they're all facing each other. I like to think of sort of an alligator with little alligator teeth on the inside. All right, let's get to ready position with the yarn the needle that's got the yarn attached to it goes in the back. That's the back needle. And let's actually go ahead and cut our tail really quick so that we don't accidentally knit with it, right? Now that we're done casting on, looks like I have some extra tail. So just cut a 6-inch tail like that. Okay, that's easier.